Hey, Raindrops. On today's episode of Reality Crime Stories, Courtney Parker and I are back. How's it going, Courtney?
It's going wonderful. And we're talking about my favorite person today. So, I'm excited.
Ah! You are excited, and so are the Raindrops. So, check this out, Raindrops. We are going to get into what? Yes, the Portia and Simon of it all. Courtney, I feel like this is a running series that we're doing on the everlasting case trial debacle, social media scandal of the
Right.
Portia and Simon situation.
And since I've apparently switched sides so many times, because I was Team Simon and now I'm kind of Team Portia. But this is the story that is never ending. So I'm excited to get a new take on it from our legal expert, and just dive into the real legalities of what a divorce, what all entails in a divorce, especially a public one such as this.
Yes, and we have somebody who is a friend of yours who I got a chance to talk to in the last episode. So, Raindrops, give it up for our legal expert in this particular episode. She is a judge in the city of Atlanta. So, yes, we got somebody credible who is able to really talk about all of the legalities of this everlasting situation that is going on between Simon and Portia. So, Raindrops, give a warm welcome for Judge Tyranny.
I love your intro. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here with you and my friend Courtney today.
Awesome.
We are happy to have you. So, let's get right into it. So, as we all know, Portia's and Simon's situation is still going on. Yes, they are officially divorced. But
Mhm.
what happened recently is Portia and Simon's situation has caused Portia to say, free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, she is free at last. So, Courtney, talk to us about the latest update when it comes to the latest saga between Portia and Simon.
Listen, the biggest thing right now is what we're titling this episode as Lean In or Let Go. And we're talking about the liens on their $7.3 million mansion that she is now, being responsible for. And so Judge Tyranny is going to get into really what it means when you divorce, you have to divide assets, when there are judgments and orders in place. As part of their divorce, she won a settlement where he's supposed to pay her $40,000 a month in spousal support. And that pretty much would remedy the mortgage on their $7.3 million home. But since he has been deported and he is no longer in Atlanta, he is, like we've discussed so many other times on our previous episodes of them. This is what, number 6. We just can't stop talking about him, Judge. But because he is no longer in the country, he is skipping out on the obligation of paying the judgment and settlement that she got, and now she's left holding the bag, instead of securing the bag. She's left holding the bag of this very costly mortgage, legal fees, and now she's subject to a lien. So as we dissect that and get into it, that's what's on, the docket for today. And we really just kind of want to understand, when the divorce ends, why doesn't the drama end with it?
I think that the first thing, I know you said that you guys have covered this 5 or 6 episodes, but just so everybody is on the same page, let's just really summarize what happened in the divorce, where they are, so that the raindrops are up to speed in the same place that we are. So during the divorce, Portia had a prenup. And I am an advocate of prenup because I believe prenups tell you what the rules are when you like each other the most. So we're going to decide if this doesn't work out when we like each other the most, how are we going to separate?
Right.
Well, in that prenup, as you discussed, Portia got 50% equity in their marital home. She also was awarded $40,000 a month for 14 months. So that's about $560,000, right? She also got some vehicles and other assets, and I believe another undisclosed lump sum alimony. Lump sum alimony means that you get one payment just of one lump sum, and it's not over a periodical time.
Right.
Okay, so the issue is Simon hasn't paid any of this. And so you were saying she's left holding the bag. Well, I wouldn't characterize it quite that way because they
Okay.
have a valuable asset, the house, $7.3 million. And so as long as she has that house, she has a way to recoup everything that is due. Right. Because when she actually sells the house within the 36 months, she's going to get her 50% equity that was awarded to her. But anything that Simon owes is most likely going to be deducted from his part of the 50% equity that they would make in the house. And so that's why it's like the prenup is still good for Portia, because let's think about this for a second. What would be going on right now for Portia if she didn't have a prenup and Simon had been deported? There would be nothing that outlines. The judge went according to the prenup. And then last month or earlier this month, September 9th, I believe, the Georgia Court of Appeals actually denied him a discretionary appeal, which means that this case is closed. He does not have the right to appeal because the Georgia Court of Appeals has denied him the right to appeal. So the only thing that is outstanding is the outstanding debts and the liens, which will eventually come out of this valuable asset. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. So
No, it
my
makes a lot of sense. Oh, go ahead, Courtney. I'm like,
no,
I'm at a loss for words, but I have so many questions. But ladies first, so Courtney, you want to ask yours first? Go ahead.
but when we start issuing liens and then the questions come up, or the rumors start swirling about her obligation to keep up with the mortgage, we hear from you and even what's been reported that she has 36 months to determine what she's going to do or the sale of the house. But prior to the 36 months, when you're accumulating liens that are being put on by his attorneys, questions of whether she's able and can afford to keep up the mortgage. She even made a playful post saying just the other day, which I loved, by the way, when she was cleaning up her own backyard and being her own landscaper and pool person. That due to legal fees, that money's owed to the lawyer, she's now having to, do some of her own cleanup. So if that is the case and the mortgage and he's not honoring what his obligations are to the marital property, even prior to getting there, is the question I guess I have is, should she think to sell early so that she can have her equity and stake in the house, or does she keep going through the motions to accumulate more debt for Simon before a sale is forced? I'm like, my biggest question is, why stay when he
But
ain't
I like,
paying?
but I do. I love all of Courtney's questions because I do want you to answer this one first, though, Judge. Like Courtney said, is Portia obligated to pay the full mortgage if Simon defaults on the 50% that he owes for the mortgage? Will it go into foreclosure if she doesn't pay his half?
Okay, so let's clarify terms just really quickly. She
Yes.
owns 50% equity in the home. Simon, according to the divorce settlement, is actually responsible for the entire mortgage payment.
Oh,
So Simon is required to pay the mortgage and all of the utilities and bills associated with the house for 36 months. Now, the question that Courtney is asking is, we're talking about what has been ordered on paper to a person who is no longer in America, and we no longer have jurisdiction and reach on him.
right.
And so then we start dealing with the reality of where Portia's financial stability or situation may be. And I personally cannot speak to that. I have no idea if Portia is capable of sustaining all of these bills that is responsible for until she can actually collect what is due based on the agreement from the court order. And so I
Can I
think
can I
that
can I stop you there for a second? I want to make sure that I'm following. I'm clear. The mortgage payment that is owed per month, legally per the prenup, Simon has to pay 100% of the mortgage.
that is correct.
Okay. Simon apparently, and you tell me if I got this wrong or right, Simon isn't paying for the mortgage payments. So if he's not paying for it, could the county take the house and becomes in foreclosure, or does Portia have to pay for it
Right.
because Simon isn't doing it?
Okay, so it would be actually the lien holder of the mortgage company, not the county. The county would only take the property if she did not pay the annual property taxes. And those property taxes could or could not be included in her mortgage. So if it's included in the mortgage payment, then the mortgage company would pay that annual tax. But if it's not included in the mortgage payment, then that is another bill that Simon is legally responsible for, that Portia would have to figure out or make a decision if she's going to actually pay the mortgage and or the property taxes in order to make sure that she has secured the property until she can get it to a point to actually take the equity out and be reimbursed for all of these expenses. So I think the point Courtney was making is
Right.
that Portia has to have the money now to sustain all of this. But the point that I am making is that if she figures out how to sustain this, she's going to be reimbursed all of her money out of his proceeds.
Mm. Okay,
Because
so when the house,
yeah.
oh, I'm sorry, Cody, because
No, no, no.
I'm like,
No.
you know, I'm in law school. Okay, so although Simon has defaulted, let's just say alleged, because Simon has allegedly defaulted on paying the mortgage payments, Portia can pay monthly for the mortgage payments. However, if or when she decides to sell the house, the old 50% equity that goes to Simon, all of Portia's reimbursement will come out of Simon's pot. Woo!
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
And I think that you may have covered this in an earlier season, but I do think it's worth noting that, remember, Simon wants to come back.
Mm.
Come back to what, the marriage, Atlanta, or the United States?
The
Or
United
all three.
States.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
Like he's had over 30 years of this battle with immigration and trying to receive citizenship and getting a visa and doing so fraudulently in another name. But he is consistently, I think I saw a quote somewhere where he said he was a patient man. He has patiently tried to become a US citizen. And so if he
Mhm.
still has a desire to become a US citizen, this will impact it. Because I don't think that people realize that any kind of legal matter, especially because this could end up being civil contempt if a judge finds him in default. that would prevent him yet again from getting his citizenship. Because again, remember, he and Portia were married less than 3 years. And so, in order to get citizenship by marriage, you have to be married at least 3 years to apply. If you don't make it the 3 years, then you have 5 years just to go through the regular process. But Simon has these outstanding legal issues, which possibly would keep him from reapplying again. Like, there's so many people don't realize, like, getting a DUI or a reckless driving for driving too fast will prevent you from becoming a citizen. So if you are defying the order of a court, it could definitely have an impact on your citizenship.
Wow.
Carlos, why do you look so baffled?
Okay, so this is the thing. Okay, listen, because Courtney knows this, and Judge, you're gonna know this too. I am going to law school, okay? Because I am fascinated by what I'm hearing, and as a Libra, like Kim Kardashian, happy Libra season. I
It
am.
started today.
It started today, yeah. So I am like thrilled. My mouth is open because, and I'm sure Courtney is like me with this question too. So Courtney, excuse me. I'm like, gotta get this out, Courtney, and then I'll have you take it away, girl. My mouth is open because I did not know that in
Right.
order for a non-citizen of the United States to file for U.S. citizenship, that if that person is married, he or she or they have to be married for at least 3 years in order to apply for U.S. citizenship. And the fact that Portia and Simon were only married for a year and a half, it does make you wonder, because again, my producing brain goes into this like, oh, the divorce being filed a year and a half prior to that minimum order sort of makes you wonder, right? Like, okay, I found out. See, Courtney, I know my girl. I
Mhm.
found out that my husband is having these issues. I
Right.
need to get out of this ASAP Rocky. Or when it comes to Simon, it also makes you wonder, okay, this is marriage. Did you want it to last for 3 years for those reasons? And that's what mine is going through. But what I want to find out, as Courtney asked her question, is this isn't his first marriage, because he was married to Fallon before Portia. But I don't know, but I'm going to find out how long they were married, because I wonder why he didn't get it done then. And is it because you said he has so many legal issues that
So he
he
was
couldn't?
denied citizenship again back in 2016 because
Right.
originally back in the 90s he applied for citizenship under a fake
Different.
name. And
That's
so
Breaking news, though, but Judge,
once
breaking
they
news. No,
yes.
go finish first. Finish first.
Yeah, so I think that that's important. Even if he was married in his previous relationship for longer than 3 years, he
Stop you
had
there.
immigration issues that would have complicated it because it's not a guarantee. You still have to apply and be approved.
right.
Can I gag you real fast, girls?
Yes.
It's Libra season. Go ahead.
If
Yes.
you say a year and a half,
Guess what? Simon and Fallon were only married for 2.5 years.
Right before the 3 year mark.
do you listen, playing devil's advocate? Do you think these women knew exactly what they were doing? Listen, people do not give Portia credit for being calculated, for being surgical with her decisions. I'm going to always give her that because I said it before. She knows more than we think or give her credit for. So
Well,
could it
you have
be
to also take into account that Portia, this is her third marriage, which means that Portia
Second.
oh, they were engaged.
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
Okay.
But she's going to be very familiar with the legal system and domestic affairs. So she would have had experience, she would have had expert legal counsel before. And again, she is being very smart because she was smart enough to get a prenup, but she got legal advice then. Anyone who would have actually went through a prenup and drafted it with her would have talked about the immigration laws. They would have explained that to her during her prenup phase.
But then that goes back to playing devil's advocate again. That goes back to her. Did we believe her when she said she did not know that he had immigration issues prior? Because remember, we talked about that when he got deported or reported to ICE, when there were alleging that her team or people on her side actually made the phone call to get him deported. Our
Well,
other, go ahead.
no, I don't want to talk over you, but I just want to say, I want to remind people that we're in a legal proceeding. And so Portia has to tell the truth. If this was during her divorce and legal proceeding, she's under oath. We have to presume that she is telling the truth
Right.
without evidence to the contrary.
Got
And
it.
I will say this, I believe she didn't know because I think we have to always go with what Judge said. Number one, she was under oath, that have been perjury. And yes, people can say people perjure themselves all the time, but I don't think, in my opinion, she gets anything out of perjuring herself because she can't go to jail for what they're accusing her of doing. What I will say is this, though. If we look at the Stone Cold facts, right? I believe Portia had no idea about Simon's immigration issues prior to the day she found out because we have to make sense of the fact is she immediately filed for divorce when all of the uncoverings happened in regards to who this man she was married to. If she would have known prior, she would have been more set up to make the rash decision that she made. She filed immediately after finding that out. And I
Right.
think that gives credence to the fact that she didn't know until the world knew. Now, what is so fascinating is this, Judge,
Okay,
as
before
you
you go to the next thing, I want to make one more point about that. You
yes,
have to also, we have to note that all of his other immigration issues were in a different name. So
Right.
it is totally reasonable that she didn't know because it wasn't under the name that she knows him as. Now
Right.
you can go on. Like, I just want to make sure because I like to make sure that our raindrops really understand. If I'm going to be on here explaining it, I want people to really understand the entire global scope of things.
Right.
no, that's why you're here, honey, and that's why I want you to talk way more than the both of us because you are the expert. So, Courtney and Judge, just to recap, Simon and Fallon finalized their divorce in July of 2021. They were only married for 2.5 years, which is 6 months shy of the 3 years that it takes for a non-citizen to apply for citizenship. Simon's divorce from Portia was finalized June of 2025. So, do we think there's a world, Judge, where based on the court going into Portia's favor again, stating that her prenup is still intact and they denied Simon's appeal, what is Simon's next move? Because he said publicly that, listen here, Mrs. 265 days, this isn't over. But I think for all of us who can count up to 365, it appears to be over.
Yeah, in the state of Georgia, it's over.
Mm.
So, because he was denied the discretionary appeal by the Court of Appeals, there's nowhere for this case to go legally except for the contempt. So, because he is not following the court order, Portia can file contempt actions to have them enforced. Again, the reach of this court or of the reach of this court is going to be out of the way for Simon, except for, as Courtney started this with, this very valuable asset. that is really the saving grace, because the court, again, will be able to make sure that Portia is able to sell that property and be reimbursed for all of the expenses that Simon is and will be responsible for. Because I think it's also important to note Simon has to pay for his legal fees as well as Portia's. So every time Portia's legal team has to go to court dealing with this divorce at all, Simon is continuing to rack up legal fees from that point of view as well. And as long as Portia is able to hold on to this asset, she is going to be able to get reimbursed for all of those expenses.
It comes off the top though, right? Like it's
It does.
her 50%, and then
She,
whatever he owes her from his 50%. So her 50% is secured no matter what.
that's correct.
Okay.
And because he is going to be in default of the divorce decree, if the judge holds him in contempt, which I understand Portia has filed a contempt, the
Oh, she
judge,
did.
that's my understanding, that she
Oh.
filed a contempt because he has not actually abided by the court order.
Got it.
And
Do we
so once
go
the
ahead.
judge, if the judge finds him in contempt, the judge is going to be able to dictate how his funds are distributed. Because Simon may not be subject to the courts of Georgia, but everybody else involved, including the mortgage company, the other lawyers, his lawyers, are still subject to the the courts in the state of Georgia.
So right now we're looking at it's the number that's out there is 670,000, 670,000 dollars.
And
That's
counting.
and counting. Every month it goes up and up and up.
But Courtney, just to add to it, just the audience can remember, you're saying it's $670,000 in missed settlement payments, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And what he owed, Portia is alleging he owes her in either legal fees and missed payments. It's accumulated now to $670,000. So that essentially would be coming off the top of Simon's portion of the 50% that he has in the house. So it's her 50% of the $7.3 million mansion, in addition to the 670 that he owes her in either legal fees, that lump sum settlement amount that we don't know that he's paid her. If he hasn't paid her the $40,000 that he owes, whatever that undisclosed lump sum amount, he probably hasn't paid that as well. So is it safe to assume that, going back to my original question, given the climate, and you guys can speak to the climate of Georgia real estate better than I can, is this mansion now considered a prize, or is it considered punishment for her? Should she just go on and sell, cut the losses and sell?
Well, a couple of points. The first point is we have to talk about the market. So in this current market, no one is getting above their asking price. It's not happening. And then when you take into account the mortgage rates, even though we just recently got a rate reduction, that's not going to be significant on a $7.4 million home. So we don't know what their equity in the house is. We don't know what they purchased the house for in advance to know exactly how much they need to make a profit. Those are all questions for Portia and Simon, right? But I also think that it's very important. Let's go back, because you said earlier that Simon owed her $40,000 and had accumulated $670,000.
Yeah.
It is $40,000 a month. So when you say, should she just sell early, she gets the $40,000 a month. But if she pays the mortgage and pays all of the bills, he has to reimburse her. She is going to get that money out of the equity as long as she can afford it. And Portia also has a daughter.
Oh, wow.
To rip a child out of their home from their routine, no matter what, the raindrops may see and look into it and say, oh, that's a lot of house for Portia and her child. That is her child's home. And so to say that, as a mother, you don't know how that's weighing on her. The school that her daughter attends out there. There are a lot of things that would factor into that. And if it's simply about whether Simon is making the payments and if Portia has figured out how to maintain this lifestyle, I really am not sure that she has to sell fast because eventually she's going to be made whole.
I mean, you raised a really good point there, Judge, because I don't think a lot of people thought about that. Like,
Right.
yes, of course, selling the house seems to be what everyone thinks she should do. But when you factor in she is raising a girl, when you factor in the fact that Portia made public in her People magazine exclusive that her daughter called Simon Pawpaw, and where is he? And she broke down and cried when she brought up that story. So to not only talk to your daughter about the fact that this man's no longer in her life anymore, the other step in removing that child from the home she knows, removing that child from the school district that she knows, is a lot to put on one child. So I never thought about that. And I'm
Right.
glad you brought that up because I think that, in my opinion, I think that gives a lot of, it makes a lot of sense as to why she's fighting for this house. So
Mhm.
Absolutely. And again, he's legally responsible. There's a court order that has been upheld. So Portia may be paying the bill, but she is going to be reimbursed. Simon, and again, I think we have to keep reminding everybody that, to Courtney's point, in any other circumstance, it may not make sense. It may make sense to sell and cut your losses. But Portia and Simon have this valuable asset at the foundation of all of these arguments. And so, as long as you have a valuable asset, that means that it's going to come from somewhere. Portia's 50% is going to be secured. And if Simon continues, here's something else we haven't thought about or talked about. If he continues to not abide by the court order, it's possible, depending on the equity in the home, he may get to the point where he doesn't actually get any equity out of the house because Portia's going to get it all from the money and the expenses that are due to her.
Wow. So as long as let me understand this, as long as is there a way? Because you said as long as she maintains the property taxes on the home, that's
Which are
separate
going to
from,
be high in Fulton County, city of Atlanta.
can
I
you
mean,
can you give us an approximate, because
It's
for a
going to
seven
be
point
at least 50 plus $1,000
for the
a
property
year.
tax
a
a
year
year,
for the property taxes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
and approximately a mortgage for a $7.3 million house can easily be around.
That's just, anywhere between, depending on your interest rate. Again, we don't know when Simon and Portia actually bought this house. We don't know the interest rate they got. We don't know how much money they put down.
Right.
All of these things factor into that.
I read
But
somewhere that it was approximately $40,000 a month. Her mortgage is $40,000 a month. That's why her lawyers ask for the $40,000 a month monthly spousal payment that covers the cost of the house. So if that is true, and I know that that would
That
make
was great.
sense. Why? Yeah, yeah, that was
I was
good
just
for.
gonna
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that that was great legal advice because that meant that her lawyers would have come up with that number prior to the divorce. This was all negotiated and actually memorialized in the prenup.
Right.
And you know, a lot of times, especially in popular community, prenups have such a bad name. But I actually think that the prenup worked really well for Portia because I asked this question to you all. Like at the beginning of this, what would have happened to Portia if she didn't have a prenup and she was fighting Simon from across the world?
Right. Do we know? And I know the raindrops will probably weigh in. Do we know if Simon pushed back on a prenup, or did he enter into because the request came from Portia, correct? The request for a prenup came from Portia.
He said in an interview that um, when he was presented with the prenup, he just signed it because he wanted to get married and he trusted his wife.
Got it.
But that goes
So,
back to the point that you were making about Portia, you know, being very sharp
mhm,
because he's not a US citizen. And so Portia didn't just need to protect herself, she needed to protect her own legacy and estate and assets and her child from someone who is not a US citizen. She had great counsel.
I want to pivot just a bit and ask Carlos this question because we're seeing a lot of this stuff play out in real time on Real Housewives of Atlanta. And this has obviously been part of Portia's storyline now for several seasons, whether it be them getting together, the fallout between Fallon and Simon to now Porsha and Simon. We're seeing all of this stuff unfold on Housewives. So, as someone who worked on, produced, show ran that franchise in particular, how often do housewives get caught between marrying for love versus marrying for storyline?
Well, that's the thing. I will say this. I've never encountered a housewife marrying somebody for a storyline. I've never encountered that. I don't think that's ever happened. Now, dating for a storyline, sure, that happens more often than not. But to go through the legal proceedings, the spiritual proceedings of marrying somebody, look, I know a lot of people want to say whether or not Portia was in love. And I think at the end of the day, the only person who truly knows that is Portia. You know,
Right.
we all can make assumptions about that. I did attend the Nigerian wedding. I felt the love in the room. They both cried. I cried. I thought I was, going to be able to celebrate their 10-year anniversary at the time of the wedding. So, and I would say that as a participant and a guest. Um, but yeah, I don't. I personally, Carlos King personally, I don't think she married Simon for a storyline at all. I think she fell in love, and I think at the end of the day, this, and I'll end my statement with this. I think at the end of the day, depending on who you are in your life and where you are in your life at the time, you get married for several reasons. For
Right.
several reasons. And you marry somebody for several reasons, more than just love. Because at the end of the day, love is not just enough when you're going to decide to spend the rest of your life with somebody. There has to be more than love. You have, in my opinion, you have to like the person. You have to really make a smart business decision when you are a celebrity who have assets and there's millions of dollars at stake here. I think all of those things fall into place when you think about someone of Portia's stature. So yeah, she married somebody who she thought had means. She's not the first, no, will she be the last? And I don't blame her in terms of I don't see Porsha marrying anybody without them having some sort of funds.
Right.
And I think a woman who is worth a lot of money, I think is in your best interest, my opinion, to yes, marry for love, but also marry somebody you like, and also marry somebody who's not gonna take you to the poorhouse. That's my advice, child.
And you would echo those sentiments too, Judge Tyranny, off of just the
Absolutely. I think that if you are dating someone who cannot help you, it's irresponsible.
that was the word. Listen, Carlos, when I say she knocked me all the way down with that one, she was like,
Yes,
no, not help
yes,
you, then
yes.
why are you? And that's not about gold digging, that's about goal getting.
Yes, that is mutually beneficial.
Yes, and we'll end it there. But Judge, you have been incredible in this episode, and thank you so much for breaking things down for Courtney and I. And listen, you know how I feel. I would love to invite you back for a future episode. And when it comes to Simon and Portia, I feel like Courtney and I predicted a few months ago, this is an ongoing battle that we will be talking about until it officially is over.
Yes, and I appreciate you guys helping me. I told you I show up anywhere to talk and actually engage with people about the law because I think that knowledge is so much of it. And the more we talk about it, the more we know and the more comfortable we are. So I just think it's amazing that you and Courtney actually do this for the public, for them to have an understanding of actually what's going on. Because believe it or not, some of the same things are happening in the lives of the raindrops.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Any last words, Courtney?
No, we'll be back in for our next episode of Reality Crime Stories.
Yes. Thank you, Raindrops, and we'll see you the next one.
Have a good one.